Chapter 4. A Feast for Those Left Behind. Order. The sound of a gavel clacked. A luxurious hall was packed with thousands, all of whom failed to hide their selfish desires and malice. They were corrupt people with gorgeous costumes and bad attitudes. An outlaw who doesn't even know the manners of a duel. The Galactic Federation is full of rednecks. Convenient that they went out when no one could see them. Isn't it just convenient that they were there to show up? What a flashy show of vanity. How dare they engage in fighting acts after violating our airspace? An excessive and sneaky attack on us. They should have left it to our armored cavalry. Donate that ship and all its information. We demand a large amount of compensation and an apology from the Galactic Federation. Some were being ambitious, others' pride was hurt by those who had come from outside, and others wanted to take their power. No matter how professional they were trying to appear, their underlying motive was greed. Punish those who disturbed the sanctity of the battlefield. Kariko kept herself dignified-looking. She was upset, but she hid it well. Amain, who had lived in the public eye her whole life, wasn't fazed at all. Solemn punishment for these intruders. Confiscation of all their property. And that godly knight too. Of course there is also that ship. In addition, execution. At that moment Kariko ran out of patience. She was usually a mild-mannered girl, but under that lay a scary rage that had earned her the title of Cerberus. She would have shown it sooner, but now she had to act as a royal figure of Jurai. She slammed her fist down in anger on the table, which was as strong as metal. Not even a tank rolling over it should have harmed it. It was 50 meters long, and it was made of wood that was stronger than the hardest tree in Jurai, and she broke it in half. By the way, it was expensive. Oh wow, this isn't good, is it? Amain whispered to Ryoko, who nodded. Of course, they had known Kariko for a while now and were able to perceive her disturbed aura. They backed off to an area where they would be safe from her explosive fit of rage. However, Miki alone chose to sit at Kariko's side silently. That girl. How uncivilized. Amain kept herself from getting in the way, but she wondered whether she should pull Kariko aside. Ultimately, she decided to leave her alone. I broke it. Kariko, who felt insulted and was ready to defend Sena, was heated up but had crashed after accidentally smashing the table, and as a result she seemed to be out of gas, but she was able to regain her calm. Oh my, are you trying to threaten us? What a childish thing to do. It put her in a bad place as far as negotiations went. This Federation redneck seems to have no knowledge of courtesy. I hear that Jurai is one of the Federation's great powers over there. To think they have a princess that acts like her. Ho ho ho, well that suits them. It's just a large gathering of barbarians. The representatives who mocked Kariko were from each of the 5 families and were in high positions. There was a political struggle among the 5 houses, so these politicians were threatened by the power of other countries because they were always in a ready-to-fight state despite desperate negotiations to defend their own countries. Miki screamed on behalf of Kariko, who had lost steam. Hey, shut up. No one knew if it was intentional or coincidental, but it was exquisitely timed. Miki cried out in an intimidating voice. Everyone was stunned. Just like a horror movie when monsters attack in a relaxed place. Even the escorts were stunned. They reflexively reached for the weapons they secretly held, which weren't permitted to be on them. Oh my, isn't that in bad taste? Miki looked back at them and smiled. Even she was being verbally attacked, such things didn't faze Miki. She was one of the auxiliary brains of the Kamadake. Even though Fuku kept the main control, she had use of several 100 million independent subsidiary systems that could easily help her deal with interpersonal warfare. Well, I guess we should start with the proceedings. Start? Didn't you see her split that table in 2? Her bare hands are weapons. Which one of you has a problem with us? We're here in regard to the crimes you committed. You're in no position to talk that way. What's your excuse for having this demon hag here? Mikihi was silent. The representatives of Renza rushed behind their escorts' backs. Hearing. Himik and the Maiden Knights should be the ones on trial, and, more importantly, keeping them in check was your job. They were going to destroy Sena. I want to hear what you were planning to do. Why didn't you step in and stop the battle? So you admit to the violent violation of our airspace and the attack that destroyed our heavenly knights. Fuck you all, and especially fuck you. I know that fool robbed us of the pleasure of having a record of the battle. But ZINV and the Kamadake are both owned by Sena, and in the battle when ZINV was in trouble the two became one, and the power readings show that. Mickey put her hands on her back and acted like they were protruding from her chest. If her chest was flat, she would have done it the other way around, but she was a woman who was well endowed. As long as there's solid evidence of ZNV's battle record, it's obvious that we were attacked by the enemy, so it's natural that we would fight back, and most importantly, ZINV is allowed to fight outside. But you're only allowed within Recepti's airspace. Then why did you approve the duel in the first place? Besides, doing so would have vaporized the Recepti. Since the battle was permitted in the first place, it was just a matter of fighting the enemy. And you look exactly like the enemy, don't you? We can't be expected to know the difference during a battle like that, can we? Are you accusing us of being the enemy? It was impossible to tell if Himik or ZNV moved first. And since Himik and the escort knights were caught up in the same battle, it was reasonable to think that they were pirates. In other words, it wasn't illegal to take emergency measures and leave their designated airspace to follow ZNV into battle. There's no basis for accusing us of violating the airspace and violently attacking you. But, how about the battle? The battle was supposed to be a duel. The royal trees have a high level of intelligence and a will of their own, and if it's a first generation like ZINV, its power is that of a godly knight, like you call it. Godly knight is no exaggeration. It doesn't care about the rules of engagement made by human beings. But it's not a god. The energy value measured in that battle zone was created by the two of them fighting. Do you know anyone who can reproduce that? Are there any human beings who would be safe in such a place? If they are not gods themselves, they are at the very least beyond the limits of people. If such a fight was held close to Recepti, this old hag and everyone on board would have been evaporated in the blink of an eye. So, do you think that your violence will be forgiven for reasons, little girl? Yeah, and don't think you're safe just because the Recepti is here. The Recepti has already agreed to hand you over to us. Mickey glared at them. It was clear that the tables had turned. Wow, you must be inbred as fuck to be this slow. Why do you think I haven't hesitated to speak my mind? What? You stupid bastards. Why do you even think we agreed to come to this farce of a hearing? Because we feel bad that your precious little armored knight got turned to dust. What? What do you expect to do with nothing but one small ship? Even if you can escape here, how far can you get without supplies? Ha. For the Kamadake, probably to the next galaxy, if not further. It can navigate between galaxies. That's ridiculous. There's no need for us to escape in any case. The Kamadake is the same type of ship as the Ryuoki that rushed in on its own and completely overcame Jurai's defense capabilities. You should check the video library on Ryuoki and Kamadake. You should have the battle records. See for yourself that we aren't kidding. Why would we ever be afraid of you when we have the ability to easily surpass your armored knights? You're afraid of our power, and that's why you want it for yourself in the first place, right? You insolent girl. Do you want to start a war? I don't mind. Wait a second, Mickey-san. Kariko, who was silent till then, chimed in. But the truth is, I know you backwater fucks are only going through with this farce because you're poor, so we'll adapt to your style to accommodate you. What about our style? I challenge you to a duel. Are you okay with this matter being decided by that? Your godly knight is missing. We win by default. There are other armored cavalry here besides ZINV. Isn't that right, Kariko-san? What? It's a bit soon, don't you think? Kariko panicked with a smile on as Mickey patted her on the shoulder. That's because Mickey knew something that she had kept a secret from everyone. Well, this does seem interesting, so if you lose, will you fulfill all our requests unconditionally? Do you really think that you're in a position to be setting the conditions? Mickey glared with a particularly cold look. What did you say? Everyone else had already understood Mickey's real intentions. Those with doubts glared with unpleasant eyes. In other words, the difference in their capabilities was already clear. I don't want to explain it to you over and over. The fundamental problem that you came up with was the violation of your space by the Kamadake and the act of destroying your armored knights. But since that was a mistake on your end in the first place, you will apologize to us and put Himik in the same position. And you will thank us for keeping you protected from Himik and the Maiden Knights. Half of them understood Mickey's intention, and half seemed to not to be aware of them yet. Mickey continued on with a big sigh. To say sorry and thank you. There's substantial evidence that the Kamidig is a power-up part of the godly knight Xianbi, so technically the maiden knights and your armored knights were the ones who defiled the divine battle, weren't they? I do not know why you insist on remaining ignorant, but the intent to use it should have been made known before the battle. It was an emergency caused by an enemy assault. And it's certain that I'm new to your way of battle, but the battle was fought because of the hostages taken which belonged to both the Renza Federation as well as the Galactic Federation. So, we had no choice but to respond to the enemy's request. No one was able to do anything of that manner in such an emergency situation. There was no time to prepare in advance, or anything else. Is there anything else you have to add? Mickey smiled as if she had triumphed. Look here, little girl. Oh, and there's no use trying to act like we don't have a record of what happened. Reception is all about entertainment. This demon hag has already managed to get recordings of everything. Have you already aired it? Mikihi. One of the leaders sent a harsh look at Mikihi. The battle between legendary godly knights. Of course, I did. Our customers live for such a sight. Gah. With that said, they had to admit that Mickey's justification was valid. In any case, it was impossible to claim their accusations were legitimate. So, you want an apology? In this situation that is inevitable, but I'm afraid there's more. What I want is full freedom of action in Renza and diplomatic privileges, plus a sufficient budget for my activities as a fee in cash, and if I lose, I'll reveal the interior makeup of the Kamidig. Of course, only within Reception. I won't allow you to do a breakdown survey, but I will to some degree disclose the technology it uses. That girl is the same as ever. Dr. Clay sat on a somewhat narrow operator chair and laughed while steering the panel with tremendous momentum while monitoring the relay from the receptionist at his side. Do you know each other? A man said with a clattering voice, while he kept his eyes on the dock that stored and repaired Himmick and the Maiden Knights could be seen from a large window. That person was wearing a black robe like a monk, but embroidered in gold thread in a variety of patterns. His face seen from the hood was covered with a kabuki mask. His expression was invisible to the eye, but his tone was frustrated. We had a little trade. With you? You're a smart man. What could a girl like her possibly have that you'd want? You know what? I don't want to know. Her wager seems a bit unwise. It's almost overkill. Would you really accept a peek at the Kamidig as betting material? Well, if you do, you've also been tricked by that girl. What did you just say? It doesn't matter if you can access that ship. No matter how much they investigate, they won't be able to understand it. It's like showing it to a baboon. So, if I can understand it, then I can know the secrets of that ship. You could make your armored cavalry stronger, but it's pointless. Even if you strengthen it, an ordinary man like you couldn't handle it. Forget the compliments I spoke of you. My mouth got ahead of me. There are a lot of people who have money. However, those with real skills are rare, so it goes without saying which is superior, as you can see from the results in front of you. You bastard! If you're going to try to get that ship, then I suggest you stop. The woman named Washu Hakubi who made that is really much worse than she looks. It's definitely full of malicious traps that will escape the eyes of a rookie. Haha, that's because that woman is better than you. He started to make counterattacks and was no longer trying to conceal his emotions. You see, in philosophy, it's about whether what one is doing is interesting or not. Only an idiot marks first place on a series of lines that stretch to infinity. You're such a rude person. At last, the man being scolded behind the mask had pulled out a sword from his pocket, but he found himself frozen in place. What did you do to me? Did you think that would work? A knife? Really? Might as well try stabbing me with a toy. Dr. Clay smiled at Himmick and the Maiden Knight as if to curse the masked man. That boy Sena, he sure has a lot of money. You bastard, that's our enemy. Don't lump us together. I'm merely providing technology for a price. I don't care who you're hostile towards, I only care if they have money. An incompetent ally is truly more horrible than a competent enemy. Now then. Wait. Where are you going? I finished doing everything I can. It's up to your technicians from here. I'm leaving to get some fresh air. What, you're just going to leave me like this? I've set it to let you go in 5 hours. If I were you, I would just sit back and enjoy the peace and quiet. The place where Clay came out of the transfer gate wasn't as bright as Jurai, but it was a place where you could see the jungle and huge waterfalls as well as lakes and dense forests of trees. Although you couldn't see the whole building from where he was, the east side with the gate was all wood, and it was like a jungle cabin. I was waiting, Dr. Clay-sama. A collared black fur bikini-wearing brunette with a short bob haircut said. She was a beautiful girl with eyes that boldly praised and greeted Dr. Clay. It's hard work, Lizana. He didn't mean the labor, but the hatred. She was an exclusive companion for Clay, a person he kept attached to him when using the special facilities here. During the contracted period, she was set to care for him in both public and private, and of course the party at night fell into that category, but Clay refused that. However, as a rule, she was to always be by his side. He chose her because she was a calm woman who didn't get in the way. It was by no means Clay's fetish. Women are troublesome, were his thoughts on the matter. But he didn't like having half-naked men on the side. He would have to keep them as far as possible, and it would just make him self-conscious if anything. Your dinner is ready in the usual room. Yes, why don't you change your clothes? Costumes suitable for the occasion were required here. He changed from a simple robe to a leopard fur pattern. He took off his shoes and put on sandals knitted from grass. Clay didn't enjoy this and wasn't able to hide his dissatisfied facial expressions, but Lizana didn't seem to care at all. They crossed a suspension bridge as high up as the top of a skyscraper building, which was built in a huge tree. They were going to a jungle palace shaped like a hornet's nest. Although it was stable and didn't shake, it was certainly not relaxing to walk upon. They entered the largest lounge there. On the floor was soft grass that muted their footsteps. There, in the middle stage, half-naked men and women in primitive outfits were dancing. Around them were a few companions. Breast-grabbing and crotch-groping could be seen between many of them but in principle such acts were banned here. They soon took their companions off to another place. Humph. Dr. Clay disliked the shallowness of the ongoings. He headed upstairs. On the top floor was a series of small private rooms on the branches and leaves of the big tree. Clay went into one. Lizana put a lot of dishes on a big tray and warmed up the food in a furnace before Clay. The amount was quite large for a single person to eat alone. Here you go. She poured a pale peachy liquid into a wooden jug for Dr. Clay. I'll serve it myself. Please go back downstairs. He wanted to get rid of Lizana and get her out of his way. As she left, Clay finally became calm and started eating. The delicious sushi is this place's only saving grace. Dr. Clay acted like he was eating for the first time in his life, devouring the meals lined up there one after another. Lizana came back in. Dr. Clay, you have a customer. A customer? He looked at the tray she brought him. There was a black card from which the patterns of Jurai, and specifically the Kamiki family, emerged. Very well. Let them in, Dr. Clay said, without looking at Lizana. Not that I care, but why do you seem so dissatisfied? The black card was a money card used for off-the-grid trades. It was enough for me to see your face at mealtime, but do you have to go showing off your figure? It was Kisu Panta, who greeted him dressed as a bunny girl with Lizana. Being greeted in such a way is a rarity. Those down below would eat me like wolves if they could. Because they're carnivorous beasts with bad taste. To them, a meal is a meal. The vibe of Kisu, who suddenly took a baked chicken's thigh and bit it down to the bone, was the opposite of her lovely costume. She was just like the carnivorous beast Dr. Clay spoke of. You're worse than a carnivorous beast. You're eating my meal. Do you have any additional demands? Yes. Quit eating my meal. Oh, and what are you going to give me to eat instead, Clay? Do you always pay such a high payment for a question and answer session? If so, I really feel sympathy towards your accounting department. Wow. It's a rare sight to see you with a woman. I guess that clears up some rumors. Is that the only reason you're here? There are tons of pretty young staff members here as well, so why have you hired her exclusively? Are you afraid you're going to end up with a bad experience? If you're done eating, then please leave. Yeah, fine. Let's get down to business. So, You were the one who gave them that technology after all, weren't you? That girl Mickey gave it to me as payment. I don't care how they use the technology. Obviously, that wasn't enough for what she required of me. I'm just trying to make up for the shortfall. Nothing wrong with that, is there? Regardless of the results, it's a trick that only works once, but it's still painful to see it brought to the table. Even if it only gets one chance, it could have easily killed, but luckily for you it didn't seem to work. So, what you're saying is they don't know where Sana went. They have no idea. And well, with respect to the paint bullets that they already had. It was used by Terrence people before, after all. Sana was its first victim, and has dealt with it many times, so I'm sure he was able to deal with it. If the Maiden Knights hadn't been wrecked, it would have been a dangerous situation. Well, my client is devastated thanks to that Sana fellow. And you sure are profiting from that, aren't you? Their incompetence is the cause of their failure, and those among them who don't recognize that are also causing them to fail. They're blaming their bad results on their technology, but really most of the people in the group are incompetent. Thanks to that girl, though, I've been contacted by many interested parties, so there are always other opportunities. The Kamadake was one of them. Oh, there are still more big fish left? Surely you joke. It's rough, they seem to be obsessed. So, I'm guessing you're still mad at Washu. Do you still want revenge? I do not. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I have decided I want no part in anything Neja Akira and Washu Hakubi are up to. They are pestilence gods. Devil women who would only waste my money. Yes, but Neja Akira has died, don't you know that? You don't know the woman they call Neja Akira. She is far worse than Washu. She's an evil woman who loves to make a scene. I refuse to believe she's dead. It's been 5,000 years since they thought Washa died, and she's still alive now, isn't she? Well, maybe. But wouldn't that be a bit coincidental? I bet that would make you feel a little nostalgic. The only thing that they remind me of is the era of my greatest bout of bad luck. It was a terrible point in my life. Well, I don't think she hates you. But well, I understand your feelings about her. Kisu looked away and bit down to the bone on some thigh meat. Why are you talking as if you know Neja? There are plenty of records and data on her. Oh, by the way, you also have a similar person named Sito where you live. If you imagine her being even more childish and restless than you have Neja. Is that so? That sounds dreadful, doesn't it? Although he was certainly approaching the truth, he didn't reach it not because he was unable to, but only because he unconsciously stopped himself from reaching the conclusion. In other words, he really didn't want to be involved with them from the bottom of his heart. I'm not going to be tsundere about it, but I'm a bit lonely as someone with the same memory as her. All memories became nostalgic memories with the years. Honestly, she was grateful for his opinion because she really didn't want to involve Clay. He was a troublesome person to make an enemy of. Were you asked to try to find Sana? That's their job. Are they confident in their information network? I can't see you missing out on making money that way. Searching for people isn't what I do. I only provide a way to find it, and they said that was unnecessary. What a shame. I'd ask if you came here to try to get me to help you find and capture them, but you're clearly the kind of person who's like a fox. You want to hunt them down and catch them as they try to escape. Oh, I'm surprised. How could you tell? Dr. Clay was quite confident at evaluating others. I know how it feels to be swayed by a troublesome woman like you. Cuckoo. And as for that Sana boy, letting him wander around here, and there is quite a profitable venture for you, isn't it? That's absolutely true. At any rate, Sana drew troubles and simultaneously destroyed and accelerated stagnation. Just like in the Galactic Federation, he caused a fuss as soon as he came to Renza. Mickey's fight would only accelerate them towards Kariko's first goal in her plan for Renza. The battle that little Mickey girl set is going to be interesting in so many ways. True. There probably won't be any problem. Probably is a subtle phrase. Well, you might as well kill some time while you're here. I want to die already. Third Prince of the Swear Kingdom, Misue Swear said. He leaned against the window as if he was seasick, his face turned blue. You enjoyed it last night, said the 10th Prince of the Kaisen Kingdom, Jitsuki Rin Kaisen, with a smile with no ill will. Like an older brother who looked after his younger brother would. If you die now, at least it'll be at your peak. Sixth Royal Prince of the Kaisen Kingdom, Ratsuka Akino Kaisen said in an expressionless but serious tone. The peak of embarrassment. Make fun all of you. Wasn't it true for you too? He shouted at his two friends while tears floated in the corner of his eyes. Strangely, the place where these three people were meeting was just next to the nest where Clay was located. Only about 50 meters away, but its appearance and sound were completely blocked by branches and leaves. The interior was somewhat different from Clay's nest, but the furnishings were still made of wood, stone, and fur matched to the place. Their costumes were also leather and fur-trimmed long sleeveless shirts with leather belting. Well, don't forget the reason we came to Reception. Your father gave you orders to build a base of activity here. Unlike the temporary quarters Clay was in, the upper rank of Renza often used this place as a secret base of activity, and it was often used to gather together local staff. They liked being assigned here with the elite who had many players. Certainly, I'm getting ahead of myself, but the situation is the situation. It's okay, bro. Relax your brain muscles. Why don't you consult your policy secretaries? The 2nd Cavalry's brother group was about to drop out of 3rd place, the upper right seat. That's why you're in a hurry, isn't it? The owner, who was shown as a picture on the stage at the Renza Central Conference, was the next secession candidate. He shared the same name as the person currently in power. If it went well, I would have been able to aim for 1st place easily. Such a wonderful failure. Was it really so important? It's a problem that you don't find it strange at the time that my father and other brothers decided not to make their move in the first place. They didn't want you to succeed, so they threw in the towel. But in order to come to the reception, it's quicker to go through the dormitory, and you can move in secret. After this, will you be studying there for the future? Even if you think that I'm acting too soon, there's no choice for me but to follow my father's orders. It's about time for my fiancé to be decided. It'll be judged that there's no problem if there's no difference. Withered wives and side rooms, mistresses and others tended to be a savage seed when they lived side by side. It was a complex mystery mixed with the speculation allowed by each woman's backing. Even more, if it was one that ended up having a child, it would become a seed of considerable trouble. But it's true that when you come here, you'll find out what women are like. I'd take it seriously if I were you. Before I use this place in the future, that person will be in charge for a long time. In a sense, it will be natural for them to be the first and last women we can choose from. Even if they were called royals, they wouldn't become royalty unless they became adults and ranked 2nd or 3rd. Depending on the circumstances, the families of their fiancés may outrank them, and whether or not they could have a side room depended on the woman who became owner of the primary room. Of course, it was possible to surround oneself with concubines secretly. But if you were outside of the royal family, you wouldn't be able to use the maintenance organization of the royal family that you could use otherwise, so obviously you'd lack a strong information network. But can you tell me why I don't have an option to choose? Misue's companion was already decided for him. Hey Misue. When you say such things, I feel pity for my maid Komakitsune-san. Misue, isn't that a bit? When did you notice? Finally, Misue surrendered to the two serious gazes. Actually, his partner was a woman who was also Jitsuki's private tutor and caregiver. She was also Misue's first. That time when you first came to visit my house. Of course, it wasn't only me, but Mother and Murasaka-san noticed. Mother and Murasaka-san. Both of them asked me about it, that's how I know. Oh, by the way, I'm relieved because my father, older brother, and the rest of them don't know. It's as good as if they know. Or rather, are you saying they aren't going to do anything about it? Misue was sad and almost cried. It's okay. You know my mother and Mrs. Murasaki are in sync, right? Since kindergarten all the way through high school. My mother is of the opinion that we are indebted to her, and that's why they made her and her mother my caretaker in the first place. It was an unexpected fact that he hadn't known. There will be no problem as long as you keep it private. Komakitsune is the 4th daughter of a baron's family, so her parents were reluctant to marry her off. She would have been single for the rest of her life. They were hoping to do something about it. But, in such circumstances, she should have had her marriage arranged by participating in a matchmaking party. Komakitsune belongs to the Student Council and Dormitory Management Association. It's common for lower aristocratic children to help with their operations. But in reality, it seems like she's also serving as the student council president and the dormitory manager. Moreover, because she was the top of the class for her grade, she's had no time for marriage activities. Her parents also don't have any money for her dowry set aside. They can support 3 girls but not 4. In the case of aristocrats, they try to marry into a house with a good home and a high-status family, so they required a large dowry. From the viewpoint of income, a house with a low ranking was said to lose a rank if it couldn't be maintained as if 3 women lived in the household. If she's that good, shouldn't someone have proposed to her already? It seems that she was so talented that she's distanced herself from all the men. Why? Her seriousness and ability. You know how she is, don't you? Well, are you okay with it, Jitsuki? She's like a second mother to me. I want to see her happy. She won't need to be my tutor much longer, so if you hadn't shown interest, she might have ended up married to one of my older brothers once she stopped being my tutor, and I prefer she didn't. At any rate, we need to go out there and expand our personal connections. The way things are going, we're going to need it. Speaking of which, what happened to Sana Yamada? Is he dead? Just missing. The possibility of his survival is overwhelmingly high considering his past career. I wonder if the Galactic Federation is looking for him. I hear that their largest pirate guild collapsed. The pirates that had been hiding at the boundary with them have noticeably been weakened, but honestly, I think a direct confrontation with them would still end up quite badly. I can understand why my older sister went over there. We should have accepted Sana Yamada at an earlier stage. If they had come on their original timetable, it would have been easy, but it's premature for this regime. And the starting results of her experimental unit weren't that good, were they? However, as a result, we dragged out the armored cavalry of the Maiden Knights who were unconfirmed up to now and Himik too, but the poor outcome of that is going to pose a problem for them. It certainly is. Don't they say, chaos is the proper state of this world? If so, it's natural to perceive the existence of Sana Yamada as the same as the godly knight itself, because he is obviously a person whose existence destroys chaos. Either way, the other godly knight must have seen him as a threat. That's the only explanation I can think of for why the Maiden Knights would come out of hiding. Despite not being asked by anyone, they got closer to each other and began to whisper. Just because this place was also a place to play didn't mean no one could be watching. I was thinking the same thing. I was also worried about how rushed it seems. Honestly, if it were me, I would think that their pirate hunting was a pointless matter. The activities of the Maiden Knights are quite different from the pirates. I don't know why they even attacked. I'd say maybe it's a territorial thing, but honestly that doesn't make sense either, but I'm drawing a blank on any other reason. But for them to attack at this time was very much an over-the-top act. Even if it was a territorial thing, Renza is pretty large and Sana's team hadn't even taken any territory. The risk of getting kicked out of Renza for taking on such a non-threat was too big. One thing I can say for sure is that their organization is bigger and deeper than I ever thought. It's not normal to have cavalry of that class, let alone 6 of them. The real question should be how it got here and where it ran off to. It was rumored that there's a secret society that supports the Maiden Knights. Now that we know they exist, it's as good as proven, so it must be quite large. Don't you agree? How did they get the parts for the knights? Oh, who's there? Because of its structure, the building had a floor that echoed. Of course, it could be considered an intentional feature, but even if you walked quietly, it sounded quite loud. I will excuse you in the event of a meeting in case of emergency. There was Koma Kitsune wearing the same bunny costumes as Kisupanta. She had gotten a job at Reception so she could be around Misue. Her outfit was different though. It had black fur and was designed like a butler's outfit without sleeves. It had a big open back that tapered down to show a bit of ass cleavage, but she was hiding that with her long chestnut hair. Actually, she may have been a little bit shy of her body because she had beast and dwarf's blood, but even so it didn't affect her genetics much. She didn't have abnormal ears or anything, it only affected her overall body shape and ear positioning. She was smaller than the average person. Sorry to bother you, but it's urgent. Oh! What's up? The date and time of the duel has been decided for tomorrow. He was distracted by her outfit at first, but quickly switched into work mode. Do you think they did that to call their bluff so they would pack up shop and leave? I can see that. But wasn't the other side the one who requested the duel? Yes, but Seina Yamada is still missing, so maybe they want them out before he can be found. They don't want them taking their time. So, did my brother send you with any instructions for me? Yes, to investigate and report on the details of the enemy's defenses. Let him know that I'm not sure of anything just yet. Can you get me in touch with your sisters? I've already made an appointment. Very good. As expected, thank you, Koma Kitsune. Is something wrong? Jitsuki tilted his head mysteriously to the unusual expression she was making. Magio-sama, Jaikirin, is being acknowledged as queen soon. You need to go meet with her. What? All of the guys yelled as their mouths hung open. I tried to protect you from having to go, but that is what he wanted me to tell you. I'd rather go to hell. Do I really have to go? In this case, it's easier to go versus the alternative. I don't want to go. I'm not afraid of my brother, but the Witch Queen, but he had to go.